Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your breakfast bankroll for Thursday, January 20th, 2022. 11 days left in this month, peoples. It will be February before you know it. We'll be talking Olympics, Super Bowl, and before you know it, maybe the Masters. Today, we are blessed and honored to have a good friend on the show, a friend that I met in the NFFC and the NFBC, um, a guy that is just the heartbeat of Dallas, I like to say. Whenever I see him in Vegas, uh, we're talking what's going on with the Rangers, what's going on with the Cowboys, what's going on with the Mavericks. And he's gives me the inside scoop, the real scoop, the what is actually going on. So we're blessed and honored today to have Mr. Brady Tinker. Good morning, Brady.
Morning, Jeff. How are you?
I am doing fabulous. I am, as I said in the intro, blessed and honored to finally have you here to talk Dallas, to talk about what's going on in the sporting world. And I was thinking of you real hard on Sunday. What is going on with Dallas Cowboys? And I was trying to get the actual temperature. A team that high octane offense this year, a defense that I think played above expectations. A team that, as Jerry said after the game, thought that they had enough talent on both sides to go a long way in the playoffs. I mean, obviously, maybe that was a hint towards Mike McCarthy. But give us your thoughts watching the game on Sunday, the afterthoughts, and just what's going on.
Well, I think fans are afraid that this is more of the same, that they don't win playoff games, one playoff win in the last 10 years, and three playoff wins since 1995 when they won that third Super Bowl. So I don't think that that's the case, but I do think that there is a culture here or a negative culture here that is tough to overcome. I believed, with a lot of other media members who've covered this team for 20 some years, that this year was different, that Dan Quinn playing so many different players and improving the roster, having such an input on improving the roster on defense, taking what was historically the worst Dallas Cowboys defense in the history of the organization last year to a top 10 defense this year, number one in turnovers. And these guys all year talked about the brotherhood that they have. And that's not something, to be honest with you, that in all the years I've covered these teams, and there have been good teams, right? 07, 09, 14, 16. I mean, there have been 13 and 12 win teams. But I would say that it's not the same as always, even though the outcome was the same as always. And Cowboys fans who are so passionate about this team feel like they've been let down again. They've been duped again. And I understand what they're saying. But the truth is, there were certain things about this team and adjustments that didn't get made during the season that ended up being a really big deal and probably a tough matchup against San Francisco. The offensive line never really played together this year, almost at all. The entirety of their best five players. They had problems all year at left guard. They went from one Connor to another, Williams and McGovern, and L. Collins missed quite a few games off and on at right tackle for various reasons. Tyron Smith is just in that part of his career where he's been so good for so long, but he misses 3 to 6 games every year. And the offensive line really stood out as the unit that just after the first 7 games of the year wasn't good enough, and they weren't good enough from the beginning against San Francisco. So the interesting conversations now is McCarthy back? I would say Mike McCarthy is probably 90% to return, but Jerry doesn't like admitting that he was wrong. Last year obviously wasn't very good, but it was a COVID year, and they were trying to put in new defenses and that type of thing. So I think he gave him a pass on this. Getting 12 wins this year felt pretty good to them, even though some of them may have been paper wins. Certainly being number one in the NFL in offense was a paper thing. They were very good through 7 weeks, but through 7 weeks, they were averaging about 160 yards a game rushing. And that's the key for Dak Prescott, to be able to hit his third step or his fifth step and have the ball come out on time, play action passes, timing routes, and all of that. And it was virtually perfect for the first 7 weeks. It was borderline awful for the rest of the season. And they padded their offensive stats by beating the hell out of 3 or 4 really bad teams, putting up 45 or 50 points. And all of a sudden, they still end up number one in the NFL in offense. And I don't think anybody felt like at the end of the season they were maybe even a top 5 or 7 offense in terms of consistency. And then, you know, in the end, I picked Dallas to win that game because I knew it would be a close physical game. And I said, in the NFL, especially in the playoffs, I'll always take the best quarterback. And I thought Dak was the best quarterback. And as much as of a S show as that game was, with 2 minutes and 42 seconds left to go, down 6, 3 timeouts in their pocket, and Dak Prescott has the football. Go score a touchdown and you win the game. And you've overcome 14 penalties. You've overcome, I don't know really what's going on with Bones Fossil and this special teams group, but they're a CF as well. And they sort of push their way into game plans week in and week out, and it almost always seems to not work. But, you know, they had an odd conversion on a fake punt, and then all of a sudden we're trying to do something tricky and run another play with the special teams unit out there, only the rest of the team didn't know. And so Dak Prescott on the offense is all fired up. They just gained 30 yards on a fake punt, and let's go, boys, let's hit the field. And instead, the special teams coordinator's over there, arms out, saying, no, stay back, stay back. We're running another play with the special teams unit. When you might say to yourself, why? But they had another trick play in mind, and the whole goal was apparently to get San Francisco to burn a timeout, because a couple of weeks earlier in the Arizona game, the Cowboys had been duped early in the second half into burning a timeout when there was odd players on the field. But it didn't work, as usual. It backfired. They ended up taking a delay of game penalty, and it was sort of exemplary of the entire game. But back to 2:42, 3 timeouts in his pocket, and Dak Prescott on the field. When you get to the playoffs, and you and I have our teams, and we watch as fans as well, you know Mahomes is going to score that touchdown. You know Rodgers is going to score that touchdown. You know Brady's going to score that touchdown. I don't know if we believe, you know, the Rams quarterback is going to score it, but probably, right? That this is it. These are the moments against good teams in key times. This is what you practice for. He's been here forever, Dak Prescott has. He's had the same offensive coordinator forever, and Kellen Moore. There are no excuses or reasons why you can't go to your best series of plays and matriculate your way down the field, and at least have a chance to punch the ball in the end zone with 2:42 left and 3 timeouts and win the damn game. And when you do that, then you become one of those quarterbacks. So it was an S show, but the truth is we got so much talent, we managed to win the game. We'll move on. We'll clean up 14 penalties and let's go forward. Instead, I believe they went 3 and out. They got it back again with 40 seconds left in the game, and had that final play, which was a tragedy as well, a quarterback draw with 14 seconds left in the game. And they're all mad after the game that it didn't work out, that the 79-year-old umpire didn't hustle 40 yards down the field quickly enough and get his hands on the ball. And, you know, it was just another example of this. So it won't surprise me. It will surprise me. It won't shock me if Dan Quinn very quickly gets asked to be the head coach of this team. I think they believe Kellen Moore's offense was poor enough in the second half and looked dysfunctional, so that Kellen Moore's probably not going to get another job. He's getting interviewed, but he's not going to get another job. So in theory, you could move Quinn to the head coach. He still oversees a defense that got a lot better, and you have your 2 coordinators, because as I did these shows all throughout the year, I said consistently throughout the year, these units love these 2 coordinators. Everybody thinks Kellen Moore's a genius. Dak absolutely loves him. The offensive players love him. Now, it wasn't great the second half, but still. And Dan Quinn absolutely revived a defense and helped have a hand in bringing in 8 new players. So that's a really long answer, but I think probably McCarthy stays, Quinn goes, Moore stays because nobody wants him, and we move forward and hope that the continuity of McCarthy staying is a good thing.
Well, I have a million ways to go, but I'm going to start with this. I've heard forever that Jerry's guy is Sean Payton. Now it's a Saints team with Drew Brees now up in the booth. Uh, Quarterback Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, a team that struggled. Not that Sean would pack up and leave, but are you hearing anything that Jerry would maybe whisper over to Sean and the Saints and go all in if he could get Sean Payton over there?
Nah, I think that, to be honest with you, this rumor has been around for 10 years. When Sean left, he tried very hard to get Romo in a trade to take with him because he and Romo had hit it off. They went to the same university, right? They spoke the same language, and that's who he wanted before he got Breeze. He wanted Romo. So the ties to Sean, Jerry's love affair with Sean has only grown through the years as he's shown to be an extraordinary coach who can take his team and make his team whatever he needs it to be. A good defensive team, a good offensive team. Sean's obviously a great coach. He still has a house here in Southlake, Texas. So he has ties here, and those are natural conversations. But the truth is, Sean's got one more year left on his contract. They can't talk about it, and I don't see this team. I think that they've moved past the point of would they give up 2 firsts for the rights to trade for Sean Payton. I don't think they would. I think Stephen Jones has sort of knocked out some of those dalliances with silliness that they had early. Where Jerry wanted Joey Galloway, so he gave up 2 firsts, in 19, whatever that was. And I think that stuff is out the window. Will McClay is a giant talent in terms of running their drafts and identifying players. And really, Will McClay is the general manager of this team, and they just rewarded him with a 4 or 5 year extension. He's a brilliant, wonderful man. So they're in good shape. I can't imagine how that would happen. Yes, is there a love affair there? Yes. And could it happen then next year? Yes. Once his contract is up, sure. So maybe that's another piece that says, yeah, we'll keep McCarthy. He's under contract anyway. No reason to give him free money for doing nothing. And it's not the worst scenario in the world that McCarthy stays and Kellen Moore probably stays and Dan Quinn goes. So, but no, I'll be surprised if anything like that happens. I'll be surprised if they make any moves. The only thing is Jerry's about to turn 80, and off and on, there have been rumors of his health not being fantastic. Some weeks, some months, he looks better than others. So I think that, he knows personally that his window is closing, not necessarily this team, but that his window is closing. And he would like to have a Super Bowl team at least one more time. He'd like to go to wherever the Super Bowl is and bask in the glory of the most popular team in the world being back where they're supposed to be. And Cowboys fans want that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go offensively here. Obviously, I'm a big NFFC and fantasy guy. On one of my teams, I moved up CeeDee Lamb, who obviously talent-wise is your best wide receiver. Had a great start in his last 6-7 weeks, nowhere to be found, even with Gallup getting hurt. So I'm just talking – from basically a nutshell where Amari Cooper goes. Sign or re-sign. You move CD to 1. I don't know when Gallup was going to be back. You got Dalton Schultz. Obviously, Cedric Wilson was a good push for them late. And actually, I think we lost you, Brady. Some technical difficulties. I think we lost Brady. Amazing information that we can get from Brady. If you're not following him, go to A Cowboy Life, DFW Sports Beat. Does a podcast, Off with the Helmets Cowboy Show on ESPN Radio. An amazing guy. He is the inside scoop for me, whether it's the Cowboys, whether it's talking Mark Cuban, Luca, and the Mavs, Texas Rangers baseball. And he's got some great stories, which I was hoping to get to with Jordan Spieth and the PGA. But it looks like we did lose Brady, unfortunately. So with that, here we go. We got him back. Oh, Brady.
I don't know what that is. I'm not a technical guy. I gotta get me a new producer in this place.
Brady, there we go. There's the face we were looking for.
You hear me all right?
I got you loud and clear.
Okay, good. All right.
You got me?
Yeah.
Okay. So here was the question.
Yeah.
Okay. NFFC, I moved Lamb up in one of my drafts. An amazing start. Nowhere to be found late. And even in the championship game, I got him left. And there's no Gallup. Gallup gets hurt. Okay.
Yep.
As you notice, the last handful of weeks, Dalton Schultz, Cedric Wilson.
Yep.
My question to you before we lost you, are you bringing Cooper back, number one? Number two, I don't know Gallup, and injury-wise, he'll be all set to come back. So the initial thought process would be, you move Lamb to one, then you got Gallup. You still got Wilson, I think. So that was the first question. And the second question, which is so glaring to the eyes, is, I'm not here to bash Zeke, okay? But when you watch Zeke run the ball and then you bring Pollard in, it's like apples and oranges. So offensively, tell me, what do you think is going to happen next season?
Well, and you mentioned several things there that we thought going into this game. We were hearing whispers out of the Star in Frisco that some of these changes that seemed imminent in the last 3 or 4 weeks were finally going to happen. It has been revealed in the last week or two that Zeke Elliott has a torn something in his knee that he's been playing with. Not an ACL or MCL. As a matter of fact, they're saying they're probably not going to have surgery. But Zeke hasn't been right for a while. And even a novice to the naked eye can tell that Tony Pollard, I won't say is the better running back when you think all the way around, but certainly is the faster, more electric running back, and certainly deserves a lion's share probably of the carries, at least a 60-40 split or a 70-30 split. And we were told that was going to happen, that Zeke would get the start because ceremonially that's what you do, but that Pollard fit better against this particular defense, getting on the edges a little bit, right? The front four does a good job of clogging up the middle, and we were going to see a lot of Pollard. End of the third quarter, we had seen Tony Pollard in this San Francisco game in exactly one series. One. The other thing we were told we were going to see was wide receivers moving around more. Okay, now it's really hard to tell who's in charge of all of this. Kellen Moore is certainly the offensive coordinator, has been there for a while, has a great rapport with Dak and with this team. On the other hand, Mike McCarthy is known as an offensive genius. He's the one who did everything in Green Bay, except maybe he had a Hall of Fame quarterback. But so Mike McCarthy's love is this short passing offense, right? Is these quick throws in the middle. Ironic, because that is kind of what Jason Garrett wanted to do all the time too, that everybody hated. But nobody was ever in motion. And so CD getting less passes seems silly. Let's put them in motion. Let's get hands off of these guys at the line of scrimmage to get them because CD's a good route runner. He's not an exact route runner, but he's very quick. He's got those quick, skinny little hips, and he get where he needs to get. And Amari Cooper is probably one of the 3 or 4 best route runners in the NFL in terms of you try and cover me, you ain't covering me. If you're one-on-one with me, I'm getting open, right? And so those two guys should be effectively open a lot, which then should open Dalton Schultz up underneath and the other guys who are getting single coverage. But for much of the last 8 or 9 games of the year, there was never any motion of any of the wide receivers. So everybody began to jam these wide receivers because it became sort of open knowledge in the NFL that if you could throw Dak's timing off at all and put a little pressure on him, then his brain did not read as quickly what the next steps were, right? Where the ball needs to go. Nope, yep, right? Tom Brady always says, when I come to the line of scrimmage, I know where I'm going with the ball before I say hike. On the other hand, Josh Allen in Buffalo will say, not me. I'm going to stand out there, move around a little bit, figure this shit out, and I'll throw it where it needs to be thrown. I think Mahomes is somewhere in the middle of those two guys. The quarterback is who he is. But I think Dak needs to be the quarterback like Tom Brady, who knows where he's going with the ball before he says hike. I think that's who he needs to be. So as you look forward as to who's staying, Amari Cooper's under contract. Now, it's going to cost them roughly $21 million, which for a top 5 talent and wide receiver is about right. It's about right. Michael Gallup needs a contract, and it has been thought since the beginning of the year that Michael Gallup would not return because he's probably going to get three years at 12, 13, 14, $15 million a year to go to Kansas City. They desperately need a second or somewhere like that. Somebody will pay him $45 million. Well, he missed so many games that maybe Michael Gallup's contract number has come down. maybe Michael Gallup will have to take a prove it 1 more year, 1 year, $10 million contract. If that's the case, they certainly like him. He is one of the upstanding, just likes to play football, quiet young guys on this team. So they'd like to have him. But Cedric Wilson that you mentioned also needs a contract. There are more guys on this team that need contracts than you can shake a stick at. Randy Gregory is one of them on the defensive side. And certainly you want to try and keep him. He's while he's had his issues getting on the field, he's an amazing pass rusher. So there are all kinds of decisions to be made here. And I can't tell you that I know which way they're going to go. They can cut Amari if they want to, or try and trade him. They can cut Amari for roughly $7 million this year against the cap. So 7's quite a bit cheaper than 20. And if they want to do that, they can re-sign Gallup and make CD the feature guy. But you said, going into some of these games, you were counting on CD. And that's probably the most egregious thing that happened or didn't happen in the San Francisco game. How CD Lamb, your biggest play wide receiver, probably the guy who get it in space and gives you the chance to have the biggest play, along with the running back who never got to play. Those two guys are the guys that need hands on the ball and didn't get it. And so those are the things, back to who stays or who goes, that makes you wonder. How does Tony Pollard, certainly the most explosive running back, whether it be coming out of the backfield or swing passes or screens, touch the ball once in the first 3 quarters? How does CD Lamb go an entire game with 1 catch for 14 yards or whatever it was? It's inexplicable. And Troy Aikman was on several stations on the radio here this week, basically saying, listen, one of the things the Cowboys may be running into, and this is an NFL-wide thing, is that teams and coaches have become slaves to packages and to ideas of what their offense is, whichever is correct. And so they fall into this trap of sort of not watching the game. Does that make sense? We are this offense. We do this well. This is what we're going to do. We are who we are. But the truth is, when we broke it down after the game, the San Francisco game, Amari Cooper got single coverage like 22 routes. Not Amari Cooper, CD Lamb. CD Lamb got single coverage like 22 times. So Troy Aikman was on the radio saying, listen, they could have called whatever they wanted to call. When I got to the line of scrimmage and saw CD Lamb single covered in the slot or even on the outside 22 times, he's like, he would have caught 10 passes. He would have caught 10 passes from me, maybe in the first half, because we just would have moved out of this idea of what the offense is and just looked up at what's right in front of us. Just play the damn game in front of you. It's not that hard. And I do see that, and I do wonder about that. I remember, if you'll indulge me for a second, I remember having a conversation with Zeke after a game maybe 2 years ago. And he had not caught a lot of passes in the first 6 or 7 games of the year. And when he caught them, he was the dump down guy, where he'd go 2 yards in front of the quarterback, put his hands up, catch the ball, and get hit in the kidneys with a helmet. And I said to him after the game, listen, just teach me a little bit here. Why is it that you're not running little mini routes to get you to where you're face up catching the ball against, that's a linebacker or a safety or whoever it may be in space? Well, in the situations that you saw, Brady, in those formations and in those pods of offensive plays, I'm the last read. And I looked at him and I said, why? And he looked at me funny and I said, you're the best player, or if not the best player, the second best player. Why would you be the last read? And it was funny because he looked at me kind of like, you're right. I haven't thought about that in a while. I'm so robotic in that, and all NFL players are. They need this consistency of, this is exactly how we do things, right? And they fall back on it. Otherwise, they get lost. But it was funny because I know that I sort of ticked him a little bit, and he was like, he makes a decent point, right? I am better than the 2 tight ends. I am better than the second or third wide receiver, especially if you say, there he is, a little quick swing pass with his numbers up, numbers on numbers with a linebacker. That's what I got to beat to gain 11 yards, and maybe I'll go 60 yards. Those are good plays, and the Cowboys didn't do that. So that's just an example of what we were talking about, of everybody becomes zealots a little bit into the fact that, this is the offense that we are. These are the theories and the principles that we play under, and we're just going to go play the game that way. As Troy said, what about the game? Are you looking in front of you? Are you seeing 4 guys rushing? We should run more. Are you seeing CD Lamb 22 times in the biggest game in the last 30 years for the Cowboys that you needed to win, being singled up and only getting 4 targets? obviously you're not looking at the game. And so those are things that and I think you see it around the NFL. If you watch as many games as you and I do, you watch the NFL and you're like, gosh, it doesn't make any sense, right? This doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And so that falls into that category. So I can't tell you that I know. I know what the details are. If they won out from underneath Amari Cooper's $20 million, because he is odd. He's not a bad guy. He is a really unique individual. When we go into that locker room to see the Cowboys on whatever days we get in there, and we haven't been in there nearly as much lately, but guess what Amari Cooper's doing without fail in the locker room when we go see him? Want to guess? Have you heard any of these stories?
I haven't. My guess is probably playing video games.
Playing chess.
Wow.
He and a couple of the defensive backs consistently play chess. They go over and sit down between two lockers and they play game after game after game of chess. He's a very unique cat, and I was down on him when he came here because I thought he had some quit in him when he was in Oakland, right? These brilliant games and then these games where he would disappear. And we've certainly seen that here. We've seen big games in his 2 or 3 years here where you're like, wait a minute, it's 3rd and 8. This is the biggest drive of the game, and Amari Cooper standing on the sidelines, and I'm like, I don't care what the play formation is or anything else. If it was Michael Irvin, he'd be running onto the field saying, whoever the F you are, off, I'm on, right? Because it's just that simple. But not Amari. Amari's okay, standing on the sidelines, 3rd and 8 in the biggest drive of the game. And it's not because he doesn't care, nor that he's a bad teammate, nor anything else. I thought all of those things. I was wrong about all of those things. He's a strange cat. And what really makes him tick is he loves lining up against you and twisting you up and running great routes and catching the ball. He loves it. So as I watch him, his brilliance and his individual genius are what he has the most fun with. In the end, do I think that Amari is completely torn up or guided by winning and losing? No, I don't think so. I think that those are like the 5th or 6th most important things. Amari's Amari. He's an unusual cat, and when it's going well, he's unguardable. He's as good at running routes as you can be, and I would imagine that the quarterback really likes him, because in the end, when it's 3rd and 8, who's getting open? That guy can get open. Now, oops, where is he? He's still standing on the sidelines sometimes. So all of those things come into play. But, that is, as you know, the NFL. 52 or whatever, 51 active players every Sunday, another 25 between practice squad guys and guys who are emulating what the other team is doing. 80 personalities, 80 bodies, trying to get everyone on the same page every week is the most difficult thing that the NFL has. And the Cowboys struggle with it as much as anybody.
I know that the Amari Cooper thing, you talked about with the Raiders and now with Dallas. And when you brought him over, I initially thought it was a hell of a signing because you needed a receiver like him, because when he's locked in, 8-9 receptions, 2 touchdowns, he's a game changer. And like you said, he disappears. And watching that game on Sunday and being a CD Lamb owner for 1 year now, and again, our season was over at the NFFC. And watching the emergence of Deebo Samuel and watching Shanahan get him the ball, whether it's running back, wide receiver, and you get your best playmakers the ball. This Deebo got 1,000 yards receiving, and then Shanahan goes, we need a running back. Why not try him at running back? And next thing you know, he's running in 6-7 touchdowns. And I'm not calling CD Lamb Deebo. But listen, I followed CeeDee Lamb real close in college. The kid's electric. The kid can do it all. And not to get your best playmakers the ball. You said when we started this show, 14 damn penalties. You couldn't get out of your own way. You had the ball with 3 minutes to go, 3 timeouts, 3 and out, see ya. You still got the ball with 40 seconds up with a chance to win. So, I mean, if you played that game 10 times, and you cleaned up the penalties, you probably were going to win 7 out of those 10 games, Brady.
Yeah, agreed. And I can't help but think it is as simple as if CD Lamb and Tony Pollard get the requisite amount of touches they're supposed to get, you win there too. Even pushing aside the 14 penalties, right? Even pushing aside the problems that you had, the defense made some adjustments, right? I mean, you hate beginnings of games. I said on a show that I was on early last week, you'll know right away whether the Cowboys are up to the physicality that the San Francisco 49ers are going to bring. They're not going to surprise you. They're not going to have a lot of trickery going on. They run the occasional reverses. Debo gets his 7 carries, but for the most part, you know what San Francisco is going to do. In their first 7 plays, they got 6 first downs, and they were more physical, and they set the tone. Now, the Cowboys defense adjusted and really, I think, played a pretty good game. Jimmy G was average to bad. Gave up a huge turnover that you always knew that he would to let the Cowboys get back in the game. But the offense could not make any set adjustments. The offense went to halftime getting their butts beat and came back out, and in the third quarter had 1 first down. 1 first down. And once again, Tony Pollard wasn't playing. And once again, CeeDee Lamb didn't have any catches. All of that to me is inexplicable. It really is. That all is inexplicable because, as Troy kept saying the other day, the game is very complicated these days. The offenses are complicated. It's Star Wars everywhere for this guy who's calling defensive signals to try and figure out what the quarterbacks are going to do, especially the best ones. And for the quarterbacks who are running these sci-fi offenses, it can get complicated. But the truth is, in the end, when you're out there playing and you're just looking around and you see what you see, it's not that complicated. And how CeeDee Lamb goes basically an entire game without being a focal point or any point of the offense, along with Tony Pollard, is inexplicable, right? And so you would have definitely thought adjustments at halftime. If Gil Brandt ever yelled at me once, and he yelled at me 100 times, the thing that he yelled at me about the most, while he was telling me I didn't know a damn thing about football or coaching football, was that the number one thing that any coach does in a football game that makes him great is he makes adjustments, right? I like watching Kansas City and Andy Reid. They will be a little off at halftime. They'll come right back out, and they're a different team offensively and defensively in the second half because they make adjustments. The Steelers make adjustments. The 49ers make adjustments. The Packers make adjustments. The Ravens through the years have always been the same team, but they make the proper adjustments. The Cowboys just didn't make any adjustments in this particular game. And the truth is, if you look at their schedule, the last 10 games of the year, they didn't make any adjustments throughout the year. They beat hell out of some bad teams. They lost to most of the good teams, and they faked themselves out thinking that they were ready for this San Francisco game, which it looks like they weren't.
You're spot on. I'll go back the start of the season. You stole one against the Chargers, and then you stole. I don't want to say stole one, but you just barely beat the Patriots before they started clicking. You beat up on the Washingtons, the Giants. You beat up on the Eagles. So there were some flaws, and we were on the Niners. We had them preseason NFC champs, Super Bowl champs. I expected a tough game, but as you stated, I knew right away when the Niners came down, they scored a touchdown, they made a statement. They're like, okay, boys, we're here. We're in Jerry's world. We're ready. We'll take your best shot. We're not going anywhere. And I think you'll see right away again, probably it'll be the opposite this week. They'll probably get punched in the mouth. Rodgers will hit Devontae Adams. No one in the world can cover Devontae Adams. And he'll get the touchdown, and Jimmy G will get that pick that you were waiting for this past Sunday, and they'll be chasing 10-13 nothing. It will be a entirely different game.
Yeah, no doubt. And, that's another good point you bring up is how does Devontae Adams get 15 throws his way and catch 10 balls every game when they run out on the field in Green Bay? You're looking around, you're like, well, that little scat back running back's a little bit dangerous. That quarterback can do anything. And that wide receiver there is good. We're triple covering him if we need to, whatever we need to do. That guy's not catching 10 balls, yet every damn game he catches 10 balls and 2 touchdowns. How does that happen? Same thing in Kansas City. How does Tyreek Hill, although I think we know the answer to this because he's a lightning bolt and you can't stay in front of him. Let's go a step further. How does Travis Kelce, who is probably on pace to be the greatest tight end to ever play, how does Travis Kelce catch 8 balls every game in the middle of the field for the Kansas City Chiefs when there's 2 people who are going to catch the ball for Kansas City? 2. Tyreek and Kelce. The rest of those guys, let them catch as many as they want. Just absolutely stand over here. 10 doesn't get to catch the ball. 87 doesn't get to catch an 8-yard pass, wheel around and run 30 yards to break open a game. He just doesn't get to, but he does. And you're back to CeeDee Lamb is got the hips and the wiggle and the big playability. And how can you not just go out there and feature him? And, another point to that is, what was it, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Amari Cooper very quietly said to us in the locker room in Amari style, I think that I'm a little lost in the red zone as far as this offense. It's sort of lost track of me. And I'm not demanding the football at all. But when we look around, I'm probably the best option. If they want to, they could throw me the ball more and then things will go better. Well, whatever game that was, he came out, he caught 6 balls in the first half for a touchdown. He ended up with 8 or 9 for the game and a couple of touchdowns. And they made a point to throw Amari Cooper the football because he reminded them that he needed to be throwing the damn football. I mean, why does it take that? How can you watch Amari Cooper anytime he gets single coverage and not say, I'm just throwing the ball there? Where was their only touchdown this game? Amari Cooper got single coverage on the outside, down. He made a great move, and he dropped it in out of the bucket. That's the touchdown the Cowboys scored. I mean, that's pitch and catch. That's obvious. And in a league where they can't wait to throw a penalty flag, anytime any of those guys are one-on-one, you just throw it to them. You're either going to get a completion or you're going to get a penalty. It seems like about 75% of the time. Why would you do anything else? Why would you do anything else? If you watch Tom Brady, he never misses any of those things, right? When he comes in the line of scrimmage and he looks out there and he's like, that guy's guarding that guy. All right, I'm throwing that guy the ball. Oh, wait, you're 0 over the top. No safeties. Okay, Evans can catch any jump ball. I'm throwing the ball to Evans. If not, you'll grab his arms and we'll get free yardage. They did the Super Bowl against Kansas City. They got 3 free touchdowns in the first half of the Super Bowl last year for nothing because Tom had the right matchup and he knew where to throw the ball. It's not that hard. I think there's so much information now in the world because of streaming and because of the internet, right? That even an above average NFL fan identifies a lot of this stuff, right? It doesn't have to be that you were the captain of your football team and played safety and you get this and you really study this. The average football fan, because there's so much information out there, half the time says, oh, he's wide open. Oh, that guy can't cover that guy. Throw it there. And you watch a team and they don't do it. It's weird.
I'm going to have you, I have to ask this question. I'm not going to get to my Jordan Spieth question, unfortunately. And that means only that I'm going to have to bring you back because we're going to be in the PGA season. And you can tell us some great stories about Jordan and what you're feeling this year on Jordan and the rest of the PGA being the avid golfer that you are, never mind all the information that you do carry. But I have to go to your Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
Okay. This game opened at 1.5. And in my eyes, it's very simple. Initially, if they wanted Buffalo Bill money, they would have opened the number at 3.5, and the Buffalo Bill money would have came charging in. Instead, they opened it at 1.5. It went straight to 2. Now it bumped to 2.5, and yesterday dropped to 1.5. Now, the Bills have already beat you Chiefs once this year, but you beat them when it counted last year in the championship game. So I want the Brady Tinker thought process on Sunday and who wins the game and why.
It's a tough matchup for the Chiefs. This is a different team, right? So the Chiefs, the first 7 weeks of the season were 3-4 and were 30th or 31st in defense. And Frank the Tank, had Machine Gun Frank, we call him, was really not in the game, right? His 2 machine gun transgressions in LA with thousands of units of bullets in his car sort of made his life tough. And he wasn't very good. They moved 95 outside instead of inside, the best player on their defense. And some of their defenders in the secondary were misproperly placed. So they made adjustments. He's a really good defensive coach. And so the Chiefs have been a lot better. They've turned the ball over more. They're giving up less big plays. And really the key for the Chiefs being better in the second half is their 2 cornerbacks have progressed to the point where their 2 outside cornerbacks are very good players. And that's made a big difference for them. And then they have the Honey Badger in the middle who does a great job ball hawking and keeping everybody in the right place. And they have 2 really young linebackers. The linebackers have been a real problem for the Chiefs the last couple of years. But Bolton, the kid they drafted from Missouri, and Willie Gay are both really good players now. So the defense sort of matured. They made some adjustments, and they got better in the second half, and they knew they needed to, and they took that upon them because Patrick was struggling, quite honestly. His impatience with always wanting to look past the chains on every play. And the problem is Andy has the same impatience, right? Neither one of them like to run the ball. It's boring. If we're going to run it, we can throw 4-yard passes. That's just an extension of the run. Why would you ever run the ball? But when there's 2 and 3 deep safeties and there's no one standing in the line of scrimmage, you're supposed to run the ball. So that was tough for everybody early in the season. This is a tough matchup strictly because Josh Allen is a tough matchup for Kansas City. And they have not really, in all their time playing him, figured out a proper spy or method for keeping Josh Allen in the pocket. So he makes big plays getting out of the pocket, and he finds a way to get. There's another one, Diggs the ball. I mean, I want to throw it to everyone else but Diggs. How can Diggs have 14 targets? But he will. And now he's really developed his tight end, who athletically looks just okay to me, but they're buddies, and that's important, right? We've had a lot of semi-unathletic tight ends head to the Hall of Fame. So that's another weapon for Josh Allen. I think this is a really tough matchup for Kansas City. The home field does make a difference. Certainly it doesn't have anything to do with the cold, because Buffalo is used to more cold than Kansas City is, but the home field advantage does make a difference. Patrick hardly ever loses at home. This Chiefs team doesn't lose at home in the playoffs, and you'd sort of have to feel like they're going to find a way to win. And the Chiefs have been pretty good the last 8 or 9 games of the season. They really have. They haven't hardly had a stinker. I can't remember the game that they lost. To San Diego? No. Anyway, they lost one. They lost to Cincinnati, which cost them the #1 seed. And that was kind of a penalty-filled game, and I think maybe they underestimated that kid a little bit in Cincinnati. That won't happen in this game with Josh Allen. But if you're asking me as a Kansas City guy who has lots of contacts in Kansas City, who's going to win this game, I'd say the Chiefs, but it's going to be a really close game. And I really wouldn't want any part of this line. I'd probably play the over, but this is going to end up being a shootout. It's going to start out where the Chiefs are a little slow getting off the schneid. Buffalo may be a little bit tentative getting off the schneid, and we're at 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. But this game will end up being 2 really good quarterbacks in a shootout at the end. And if that's the case, then I'll take 15 in red playing at home in Kansas City. But it'll be close, and it will not shock me if Buffalo wins.
I agree 1,000%. I just I'm a numbers guy. I don't know if Vegas is playing, Jedi mind tricks here, because Kansas City back-to-back Super Bowls. They were a coin toss away from being the 3 Super Bowls. They lost the coin toss to Tom 3 years ago. And they got revenge on their mind, meaning not just the butt whooping that they took this year, but they want to get back to the Super Bowl because, you were missing your left and right tackle. Pat was hurt. I mean, you knew early you guys are in trouble there, but you want to get back there. You want to get the egg off your face, and struggled real bad this year early. Pat seemed like he was going through the motions, turnovers. I thought the key to the season, the turnaround too, was the trade from the Steelers.
Yeah.
That kind of jump-started that defense. The defense was carrying the Chiefs. Defense.
Yep.
But I'm excited for this matchup. It's going to be a hell of a game. Brady, do us a favor here, wrapping this up. I've had this crawler on the whole time, where to follow you at A Cowboy Life at DFW Sports Beat. We talk about Off with the Helmets Cowboy Show, ESPN Radio. Tell everyone where to find you, your podcast, your social medias, all that good stuff, Brady.
Well, Twitter is where you'll hear from me most often. And I have 2 Twitter accounts. At DFW Sports Beat was my longtime TV show here in Dallas that was on Fox Sports forever. So I'm there. But I'm mostly now a slave to my podcast Twitter account, which is at A Cowboy Life, not Cowboys, at A Cowboy Life. And you'll get insight from me as to everything that I'm hearing coming out of the building as it has to do with the Cowboys, the Mavs, the Rangers, the Stars, golf, all of that. The thing that I'm proudest of right now, when you get to be my age, all of a sudden you sort of realize what it was that made you passionate about this. I was always a sports fan. I was always proud to be a part of the media. I loved live television, live radio. But in the end, the thing that has really been the most fun for me is getting to know the players through the years. And I literally woke up in Las Vegas a week that we were together out there doing NFFC stuff. And I had this epiphany that I needed to do a podcast called A Cowboy Life, because I knew that I had current players and former players across the landscape that would tell me stories, not necessarily their entire life story, but parts and parcel stories that happened to them throughout their years. And the coolest thing is in the first 100 stories we did at A Cowboy Life, these are all edited stories. Probably 5 of them had any football in them. It ended up being this coach, this uncle, this preacher, my family, my brother, my sister. These are the people that helped influence me, a certain coach, whatever it may be. They ended up being very personal stories. And people, once they realized that I was good at helping them tell their stories, told me a lot of truths about what it took to get to where they were, and how thankful they were about their lives and the people in their lives that shaped them. So those podcasts are storytelling podcasts. It's called A Cowboy Life. The Cowboys bought 20 stories from me during this season. So DallasCowboys.com, they have 8 or 9 podcasts, most of them talking about whether the right tackle should be replaced or not. But mine is different because it's a storytelling podcast. So DallasCowboys.com, go to media, go to podcast, and page down, and you'll find A Cowboy Life. There's 20 stories there. But at the website, 3ws.acowboylife.com, there's 114 other stories. And these are just stories. These are, I'll give you an example. Doris Armstrong, one of the depth defensive ends on this Cowboy team, and getting to be a pretty good player, played at KU. And his first year here, I went over to him because I'm a Kansas City guy and said, hey, how you doing? And it was middle of the first year, and he said, not that good. Well, that was a pretty honest answer, not something that I expected. And I'm like, how come? And he's like, I haven't been away. College was one thing. Leaving home and going to college was one thing. But I had my fraternity brothers and I had my football player brothers. But I'm not fitting in. I'm not making many friends. I'm not playing a lot. This is very difficult. The Cowboys had that odd group they called Hot Boys, where everybody was wearing $1 million necklaces, and they're the Hot Boys. But they wouldn't let him in. And so he was sort of an outcast. I went back during the second year, and he was a different guy. And I'm like, what the hell's up with you? And he told me, he said, in the off season, I spent the entire off season with my brother, and his brother's 10 years younger than him. And throughout his entire life, he had ignored his brother. His brother was given to him by virtue of a different father, et cetera, 10 years difference. How are they ever going to get along? They didn't. Dorrance didn't care about him, but he had this epiphany in the off season that his brother, who is now 12 years old or whatever, needed him and was looking to him for guidance. And all of a sudden, this wave came over him. He wanted to do it, and it literally opened his heart. It opened his heart to his brother, and it made him feel more grown up, and it made him feel like he had control, I think, of his life and the relationships that were in his life, which then carried over to the Cowboys locker room. If I'm going to get along, I'm a damn man. I'm a good football player. I'm going to find my way in this locker room, and he has. So that's a story that's there. And his mom's in the middle of the story crying. And she called me, and I'm like, why are you crying? And she's like, I can't believe that he's grown up enough to realize, that he wants to be a part of his brother's life. And I can't believe that he told you. And I can't believe that he's talking about, these things, because he's the quietest, most reserved internal kid in the history of the world. And all of this makes me as a mother so happy. I can't stand it. So that's one of the stories, the younger brother's in the story. It'll bring a tear to your eye, and it's only about 15 minutes long. And so those are kinds of examples of what's here. These aren't football stories. If you may be saying, I hate the Cowboys, I'm not listening to those damn stories. These aren't Cowboy stories. These are NFL football player people stories. And I've been very proud of them, and they're the number one thing on my list. So acowboylife.com, or go to the Dallas Cowboys website and you'll find those. And then there's lots more on the plate. The Mickey Mantle brothers reached out to me, and I've written 14 episodes of a Mickey Mantle TV series. And we're about to go to market with that as well. So there's a lot of, as you and I always do, there's a lot of different things going on. I like all of it. I like being involved in all of it. And I'm honored to have an opportunity to do everything that I get to do.
I don't know how you have enough damn time in the day.
Well, I don't. And you add in a little ADD where I go to work on something for 15 or 20 minutes and I'm killing it. And then all of a sudden I'm up and walking around my studio. So the one thing is 3 or 4 different projects with the ADD kind of works because I can do 30 minutes hard on one and then I can go to another because I got 3 other projects. And so I can rein myself in a little bit. But no, I don't. And some days you get up and you say, what's supposed to be number one today? What's the most important thing? And that kind of changes day to day. But I'm enjoying all of it.
Can't thank you enough, Brady.
Yeah.
I will be not a stranger in your ear. I'll be pounding down your door because you got so many stories. You're so locked into the Dallas area. I want people to hear. I want people to get out there and get to your podcast and see what they're actually missing out on. Just now because the Cowboys are out of the playoffs. I mean, you're just warming up. You got a million other things going on as you're talking about the Mantle stories. I'm dying to everyone to hear the Jordan Spieth stories. And just, you can, divulge a few stories about Mark Cuban and all that good stuff. But we'll save that one for a rainy day. So thank you so much, Brady. We thank you so much here. Everyone watching, listening, thank you. Follow him, A Cowboy Life, at DFW Sports Beat. Get on over to Off with the Helmets Cowboy Show, ESPN Radio. Find him on Facebook. Find him on Twitter. You found us here, find him there. So from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Brady Tinker, we wish you all an amazing day. In a few more hours, Colton Soroka from Chicago. We'll be talking the midday market report, and we'll be getting you ready for hopefully some winning action tonight. So we bid you adieu for now, and we will see you in a couple hours.